Hello, hello. Welcome back to Behind the Design with OPEX coaches, Daniel Persson, Brandon Gallagher. You're in for a treat today because we are switching from the design of exercise to the design of lifestyle and coaching behavior change. I'm excited to see how you all are using this tool because it's one of my favorite tools in the platform. With that, I'm going to kick it to you guys.
Let's go.
Cool. How are you, Brandon?
Very good, very good. Busy weekend, but we're here making it happen. I'm ready to talk lifestyle design.
Yeah. The thing that's sometimes forgotten when people just rush to write a perfect program, they forget about lifestyle and all the other factors that
Yeah,
makes
I
a
think I
difference.
think probably that stuff. I mean, we'll get into it, but I think that stuff is. I mean, I'm sure everybody who's a coach or a client in some capacity has heard it 100 times. But like, you work out for like an hour a day. You got 23
Yeah.
hours. You got to fill with right decisions. Otherwise, you're gonna be lacking. So
Yeah. 100%. And yeah, so my thought was that I'll start off with just sharing a few slides to some concepts and principles I use to approach, especially like lifestyle and nutrition, and also how I look at using wearables and health data, like with intent. So I just don't create noise, or how I use it to enhance my coaching decisions.
what's your
And
experience with wearables, like wearable technology? Maybe this is too early to ask the question, but do you
yeah,
do you have experience with like because I've tried like all of them just to at least try them and have some experience.
yeah, so I've basically just done like different watches like Garmin, and what I've done, and not much more than that. But I have clients doing like Aura rings and all different types of trackers. But for me, I've only had like Garmin or Polar watches. How
Gotcha.
about you?
Yeah, I've tried Whoop. I've had an Aura ring. I have a Garmin watch now. Had the Apple Watch for a bit. Um, I found the Whoop to be very nice, but I just wish they would put a clock on it. Like, it's just
Yeah,
it's that hard to put the clock on the damn thing. But
yeah,
I found the Whoop to be nice for a while. I found myself with the Whoop having trouble some days where it would tell me I wasn't recovering and I felt amazing, or I felt terrible and it was like, "Oh, you're great." So I just had trouble at that point with that. My favorite's probably I love the Aura Ring. It just wasn't very like functional when you're holding a
yeah,
barbell.
yeah,
That was the only problem with it that I found with the Aura Ring. Um, and then the Garmin's, I don't really watch when I sleep, so that was the one thing I do miss about like the Whoop and the Aura Ring was having that sleep
yeah,
feature with it. But yeah, I've tried just about all of them, and I've had like a positive and I'd say like a net neutral experience with them.
I think it's like anything. Depends. Like some people just want be able to see the time as well, but then some people want a specific watch and then have a fitness tracker. Then it doesn't make sense to have, by some reason, have time on it as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's individual.
Yeah, I
And
think they're very useful. I just think they're like very useful to teach because I think what we're going to talk about today with like the lifestyle stuff, being able to on your own determine a lot of these factors as much as like having those numbers are really important and can be very helpful. But I think like being very aware and not outsourcing, like we kind of talked with AI. I think you and I have had this conversation a couple weeks ago where it's like you outsource that thinking of like programming or even having that thought or outsourcing the idea of writing or whatever, and you kind of give up your own ability to like understand how do I actually feel in
yeah,
this moment, not what is this piece of plastic, which I joke about. This piece of plastic controls my life sometimes.
yeah, yeah. So it's basically that. So if we start with what I have two categories of or how I try to look at goal setting, and I think it's important because habit goals are so important to me, and they are the backbone of my the later years of my nutritional lifestyle coaching, trying to create good habits. Because it's I so habit goals would be um, moving daily, or something that it's connected to a behavior or decisions, whereas outcome goals would be dropping 5 kilos, or is an outcome you're chasing. Not saying that outcomes or outcome goals are bad. It's just that I want to, especially for my lifestyle clients, the majority of kind of their goal setting to be habits, because I've found that more sustainable. And also with like before, I early days I did some like nutrition plans or diet plans, but I basically don't do it anymore, because they if they work in the time where you can adhere to it. But I've seen so many times where people get sick of it and they just drop off. And also the case where when people come to me and you are going to start working together, a lot of times people go that strict diet plans is the only thing that worked for me in the past. It worked really well. I dropped this amount of kilos, or whatever like motivation they have, or argument they have behind it working. And usually my counter question is like, okay, so if it worked, why are you not still doing it? And
that was
then it might,
literally gonna be the thing I was gonna say. It's like,
yeah. And it's like, it might be that, oh, it was hard to fit with family life. I got bored of eating the same thing all the time. It's like, to me, doesn't sound like it was working. What if we built a coaching and a system and a design based around good decision, not good, but like habits connected to your goals and priorities, instead of just having a strict diet plan, which when you fall off the wagon, you don't have any direction or anything really. And so that's what I try to do is, and going back to the title of this and how to use fitness data dashboards with intention, I always keep habits in the back of my mind when I look at stuff, and try to connect numbers to habits rather than just staring straight into numbers.
yeah,
So
I think a lot of things here in this. Sorry, I just want to add this in, but like with lifestyle, like you have to treat it as the same way you would exercise, you know. And I think a
yeah,
lot of people, they come in, and like you said, it's that same concept of like, ah, this used to work for me. And my favorites, I used to bench 300 pounds. I used to run this. I used to run. And it's like, you know, I get it. And like at times things work. You get in like habits, and or you get in like rhythms and whatnot. But for the most part, building sustainable habits is, it should be the real goal of like lifestyle coaching,
yeah,
right? And creating a system where even in the worst of times it works, and even in the best of times it works even better. So yeah, that, I think that's like so important to understand as a coach and client.
yeah, 100%. And I look at it as, or I try to progress my clients through, like, the baseline is the basic lifestyle guidelines, the BLGs. If you go through the OPEX method, you will run into these, and they are so useful. And I know the naming of them have changed over the years, but it's basically like, uh, get a good amount of sleep, see the sun every day, move every day, drink water, eat quality food. And it sounds so simple, but it's not easy. And I run into that discussion quite a lot with clients, where I always want to start at that level, implementing basic lifestyle guidelines. And it it's almost like you have the discussion with them where they think it's too simple. And because they want to hear about the secret recipe or something like that. But it's simple but not easy, because then you ask them, are you doing it? And they'll be like, nah, no, I'm not. Or yeah. So basic lifestyle guidelines is the first level where I take them. And next up will be fuel, which is basically, we eat real food, we see the sun, we drink water. And fuel will be going into discussion of macronutrients, kind of, if performance is a goal we have, we start to dig into that discussion. And more of of that real food? Can we start play around with the composition of terms of protein and carbs and fat? And then the next one would be timing, which is when do we eat certain stuff? Or for the high performer athletes I have, it might be that we train AM PM, and we need to get you ready for the session in the afternoon. How do we what do we put in terms of nutrition in between? So, and the big thing here is like the basic lifestyle guidelines are the big foundation of what we do. We can progress into starting to picking the food apart in terms of fuel and how do we fuel performance. And next step would be timing. So is there anything we need to time in terms of nutrition? And that is a really small portion of like the benefits of this structure. Or it's not for everyone to start dealing with timing in terms of nutrition. But what you see information wise, timing and lots of information on social media is because it looks cool to talk about when to take your post workout shake, or it sounds super scientific, but it's you have so much more to get out of nailing the basic lifestyle guidelines than how you time your post workout shake. It's like when I've had people ask me, like, should I take my protein shake at 30 minutes after a session, or 1 hour, or 1.5 hours? And you know that they, at the same time, sleeping 5 hours, doesn't see the sunlight, and they just sitting at a chair all day. And you'd be like, that protein shake timing that's not make it or break it for you. You would be better off just focusing on the basic lifestyle guidelines.
Yeah, and I think with some of this stuff, again, I've because I enjoy exercise, I enjoy programming exercise. So when I look at this stuff, I kind of think of it in that way too, where it's like if I had someone new to the gym, right? I'm not throwing them under a barbell back squat like the very first time, even if that was the case, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna work them up. You're gonna start them with like basic movements. You're gonna get them to understand what the squat pattern even is, how to understand it, what the progressions are, that sort of thing. And like with nutrition and lifestyle, I think so many people again, they want to understand like fuel and timing. And like you said, it's the cool thing to talk about. But like nobody even talks about the basic factors of like trying to get to that point. Like, yeah, you can talk about the timing of your food, but you also have to talk about like making the food and
Yeah.
buying the food and then keeping the food safe to eat, like so it doesn't go bad. And understanding the, you know, ways to where to buy food and what's the difference between 80-20 beef versus 90-10. Like it's little things
Yeah.
like that where people completely overlook that stuff. They don't understand any of the basic patterns of just, again, basic lifestyle things. And then they want to jump right to, oh, I want to jump to macros because I want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days or whatever it is that they say. And I think that with this stuff, understanding awareness, understanding this first part, oh, I'm moving my cursor, but this BLG aspect of everything only allows you to better uh, to get what you need even more out of like the timing and the fuel, because you actually understand what you're doing there, not just jumping in. Because I've seen so many instances where coaches and gyms take, and I used to have like nightmare situations with my old gym where there's a gym in uh like Albany where I'm from, and they would just have, well, there's multiple gyms, but that would do this. They would have people come in who are new and they'd put them on these macro plans. And then after like a year of just trashing their body, they would just like plateau on everything, weight, performance, all that stuff. And none of them knew basic lifestyle guidelines. None of them knew how to like just build awareness in what they eat or understand exactly what it was that they were eating. They were just, I have to hit this number. If I hit this number, I'm good. Right. And then you go through these huge, this huge drop, and then you don't understand anything that goes on behind it. And you end up hitting a plateau or kind of putting yourself in a really bad position long term. So it's a tough thing to deal with as a coach.
And also there's value in progressing from what I've found is that there's a value in progressing through these levels, because
Of course.
because I have it might be that my client are in the place, um, let's say my client has progressed into with counting macros and trying to be really dialed in at one point in life, and then they go on vacation. And what I found so beneficial is that, okay, let's not track food the coming week. I want you to enjoy vacation. So let's just try to hit or keep the basic lifestyle guidelines in the back of your head during this week. But I still want you to just relax and enjoy. So it's so useful also to build it in levels where you start with the basics and create a solid foundation, which you can go back to uh, rather than just jumping to timing and fuel and don't have that solid, like when they don't have that solid foundation, because then you don't have the option to pull back a bit because they're not educated enough in that level of nutrition and lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we go back to the health data and like wearables and all the information we as coaches can collect now to enhance our decision making when coaching, I these are 7 principles I use when I look at data. And also when it comes to systems, go back to the episode where we spoke about coaching freedom and uh, systems and relationships, because that's also another layer of it where I try to use data to create clarity, but I don't ever want to like create any distance between me and my clients. So I always want to be present and don't let the information or noise come in the way of my relationship with my clients. But these 7, if we start with the first one, I see so many people get controlled by fitness data or wearables where they get so obsessed of thinking that this is um, the numbers dictates what they can and cannot do. But I use it more or try to educate them towards awareness over control, and also kind of tapping into that trends over single days. So this is, from what I believe, one of the most important thing is trends over single days, because it's trends are the big thing here. What can we see? Because almost all wearables are to some degree inaccurate. It's just more of a question of like, can we see any trends here? And can we understand how are you feeling or how training is going better with these trends? And not getting upset of sometimes your kid might be sick or you've been up all night and life happens, and that's, it's not the end of the world. It's more of us under together, a coach client relationship, and understanding the trends.
Yeah. And I think with a lot of this stuff too, you know, awareness leads to control, obviously. When you're more aware of what you're doing and how you're actually feeling about these certain things, you're going to gain more control. And I think trends are like that's such an important thing, especially if they're new, right? And I
Yeah.
think once you're experienced in fitness, you get the gist of like, hey, as long as at the end of the month, you know, whatever I was doing is moving in the right direction, you can kind of understand that. It might even be 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. But it's like, you know, as long as I'm feeling faster, I'm feeling stronger, my weight is trending down in the right direction after a month, you understand that and you learn that, right? Early on, it's so important because I think people take each day as such like an important thing. And obviously every single day and like the little micro details is really
Yeah.
important. But in regards to like the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve, if you're starting the week at a certain weight and then you're ending the week at the same weight, right? Sometimes that's very common. That happens early on in your training career. You know, you might just see that number and say, well, nothing happened, right? But all your lifts
Yeah.
went up. You slept a little bit better. You hit your, you built your awareness in the gym. You do that consistently for 4 weeks. That weight that started at, let's say, 150 is going to look at like 145 at the end of the month, right? And it's going to be
Mhm.
those little things that you do consistently over the course of time with awareness as well. And that's when you actually like get real results from um coaching and then the training and all of that.
Yeah. And also, and that leads us into the next one, that context is everything. You need to put whatever you see in the data like in the context of what's going on, and how do we better understand the situation, because it's there might be reasons, as I said, why you didn't sleep, and it's not the end of the world. It's just that we use it to understand it better, and make better decisions. But it's not, if we look at use data to inform us, not to override how you feel. And back to what you said about the whoop, and sometimes you slept great, but it said that you slept horrible, and it's like, yeah, you can use the data, but also remember to just keep asking your clients, how do you feel? Did you sleep well? Because that's if not the most important information. You can't stop doing that, because you're tracking sleep with a watch or a ring, or it's there to complement, like assist you in, or trying to understand the situation better, and also having something that you can discuss together with your client, that's not just feeling, which can sometimes be powerful. But it's I think it's important to not let it override how you feel, and just being an addition in terms of information to how everything is going.
Yeah, and I think even if you look at those first three, like in my opinion, it's really hard to use data just to inform you if you don't have context and you're not understanding trends and you're not building awareness. Because a lot of people skip to number 4
Yeah,
to get to that point, right? They'll get a Whoop, they'll get a Garmin, they'll get an Apple Watch, and they'll just be like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna get all this data. It's gonna tell me how I feel, and that's gonna lead me to all these other things." And sometimes, I will admit, sometimes you can get really good information and awareness built in from having like a wearable, right?
yeah,
Especially something that tracks as in depth as like the Whoop, but you mentioned this as well. Anything that's on the outside of your body is going to be very hit or miss in regards to its consistency. And even with something like that, right? If you use the Whoop for one day and you take in any type, well, now I don't think it allows you to get information until like a weekend, but like even that can like idea of a Whoop's not just going to give you one day and that's it, right? It like literally uses context in regards to how you've been training. It looks at the
yeah,
trends of how your sleep's been, and then it kind of allows you to build awareness, right? And any of those wearables do that, and then they give you data that's going to basically tell you how you feel. But if you don't actually have real awareness or context or pay attention to trends, then that data is just going to tell you what to do, and you're going to be controlled by it, and you're going to feel miserable,
yeah. And also, it's like with the generic targets versus personal patterns, which is the next one. It's it's so dependent on the individual, and
Mhm.
it's I get the question a lot, like, so what's a good HRV, what's a good resting heart rate, and they asking like there's generic targets that you should hit, whereas I'm more interested in personal patterns,
Yeah.
and how is this changing over time. And it's almost like when you get the question like, how much should I take in a deadlift? It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's the cool thing is, if we get you stronger and get you living a little longer or performing better than you're doing right now. And it's more about like personal patterns and the trends, rather than generic targets. Or you can say that like that this is good or bad. It's a boring answer, because people usually want to hear certainties and like black and white, uh, super decisive recommendations. But it's not. That's not the case. It's more depending on the individual. And yeah, that's why I ended up doing individual design, because I think it makes sense. But and next one would be, don't chase perfection. And what I mean by that is almost like what we touched on. Don't get too upset if you're not perfect. And also, there's a point tracking like being consistently good beats occasionally perfect. And because I see sometimes people know that they're going to get a bad sleep score, and then just take off their watch or whatever they usually use for tracking their sleep, because they know that today's not the day I'm going to be perfect anyway. But there's also a point to tracking those days to get the complete picture, over like weeks, month, and a given period of time.
Yeah, and I think even just going back to those two, I think the personal patterns is so important to understand the rest of this, because and I think that's why, like you said, that's why we do individual design. And I think, oftentimes you have I'm a big believer you have to start in like a general concept, right? Like there has to be
Yeah,
some idea of what works for most people. Most people need to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Most people need to eat certain types of foods consistently. Most people need to work out X amount of times per week doing this type of stuff. But then we have to really kind of fit in the real who's in front of us, right? And just
yeah,
like we would in exercise, the lifestyle needs to match that as well. And like if you truly look at what works with most people, the concepts and the principles, like we always say, are generally going to be the same across the board. How you
yeah,
kind of fit that in, it matters more than like you said, a generic target. And that's why with perfection, like even just kind of tying that second one in, it's really hard to say what perfection is on any of this stuff,
mm,
because you know it fits in with how it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like you could have the most perfect plan in the world, and perfection is, maybe it is a goal, maybe it is something, but it's like, you know whatever it is you're trying to chase, but at some point perfection is unobtainable in some of these ways, because life just happens, and that's why we need to adjust, and we need to kind of build these things in to match it.
yeah,
I just think it's really hard, and almost detrimental to a client, especially a new one, to try to get them to chase these generic targets and have them chase perfection, right? If we're going to get anywhere close to quote unquote perfection, it's going to be understanding the personal patterns, and then getting us to understand, like, hey, if you really want to do this with your schedule and everything going on in your life, then these are the non-negotiables. These are the things that we need to see every single day, and work backwards from there, because that's probably the closest we'll get to perfection, uh, in regards to you know lifestyle habit forming things.
yeah. And yeah, I agree. And just to finish it off, this list, like data without reflections is noise. And I see this a lot as well with people tracking their sleep, and you might be at a dinner and someone is telling you that they're tracking their sleep, or yeah, have lots of information accessible from their wearable. But when you ask them, what do you do with it? They don't know. They just track, and they track a lot of stuff without taking any action or connecting it to habits, or they're not doing anything with the information, which then it just creates noise. and
Yeah.
and yeah. So I think back to know why you're tracking, and what's the intent behind it, and what do you want to do with it, or what you want to accomplish, or what decision are you trying to enhance and make more clear, or getting some data to support, is really important.
Yeah, and even from a general perspective, I know we're talking about, but I've had some experience with, and obviously you train, high level athletes. I've had some experience where athletes avoided the information because it messed with their head, and
Yeah,
it kind of put them in positions where they were, because, like, for example, the UFC offers, I don't know if they still do, but for a while they were offering free Aura rings, and I think there was like a discount on Whoops for the athletes, and they're always, having those sorts of things, and because they want the athletes wearing them because it promotes it. But I think with a lot of this stuff, these guys, they train, and if you're an elite level athlete for the most part, even though I've seen some that amaze me, but you have awareness of your body, right? And you kind of have an awareness of how you feel and how you're going to perform and things like that. And I think a lot of these numbers that get kind of fed to you through these wearables, they end up, you know, doing more harm than good for some people, because there's days where I've trained people who were wearing those things and they were getting information, and again, they had like red score days or on their sleep or their recovery, and they were like, like maybe I shouldn't train today, like maybe I shouldn't, I feel good, but like this is telling me it's not, and it just kind of gets in the way. And I had to kind of finagle some things, or try to get some of the information that I wanted to get out of them in a way where they weren't seeing the numbers and I was able to just see the numbers so I could still make those changes. But
Yeah.
you need to reflect on those things as well. Like, I love this list, and even the way you wrote it out is basically perfect. Because if you're not looking at reflection, or if you're not reflecting on those numbers, it's literally just going to get in the way, because you're not going to understand
Yeah.
what you're actually looking at, and then it's just going to make things so much more stressful. Like, even when we talked about macros, right? It's like, in my personal opinion, numbers just make it stressful, right? It's like when you
Yeah.
go and you go to eat food, and you want to just obviously you can't just binge all the time, but it's like when you have to go and eat a salad, but then you have to go and eat a salad with numbers on it and understand the exact numbers and all the things and weigh it. It's like it becomes so much more stressful, and you have to be ready for that. You have to be aware of it, and you have to build up to that point. And I would say it's the same thing for this sort of situation as well.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll jump into. So I pulled this. So I'm in the lifestyle calendar in CoachRx now, and I pull this one from. It's a progression I used for one of my clients, and I wanted to go through this just to visualize how I sometimes always. It's not always this way, but this is how I a lot of times start with. If we talk about nutrition and in the lifestyle calendar, I have something which I just call planning.
Mhm.
So the first week, they just, or with this specific individual, but a lot of my nutrition clients starts in this way, where they just write down what are you planning to eat tomorrow, and we have that as an habit for the given week. I don't want to overwhelm a new client with a long list of lifestyle habits. We start with usually one or two, and then we're adding on that or progressing that habit throughout the weeks. And a foundation for wherever you want to take nutrition and the habits. What I found is that planning is a skill and a habit that is the foundation of any direction, or where you want to take that next step with the nutrition, because it comes down to just looking ahead. Do I have all the groceries I need to even eat the way I planned, just to get away from those quick decisions, which can be hard. So I just start by creating a habit of them planning, and it doesn't have to be in like nutrition calculator or a tracker, where they can also just by free text write down what they want are going to eat next day. And that's usually quite a good tool as well to get a picture of the first week when I start working with someone, because I can, as a coach, start looking through kind of what they plan to eat, and create a picture of where we're at in terms of nutrition. And also, people usually like when they are writing down what I'm going to eat tomorrow, it starts to become a conscious decision. And it's most people don't write like I'm going to eat pizza, burgers, donuts. It's also a way for them to just start reflecting about food and make some conscious decisions. So that's usually like the first step for me.
Yeah, well, I think, like, have you ever, and maybe more of a question than a statement, but like, have you had success with people just not using macros? Because in my experience, you can make so much positive change in somebody's life by just like looking at what they eat and making like small changes that way, right? Where to the extreme, someone's coming to you looking for help, they're trying to get fitter, they just want to improve their life, and they've never written down their food before, right? So it's just even teaching them that skill of like, hey, like when I start out with somebody, I use the same type of framework that Daniel has here, and I just have people write, and I don't want numbers. I just want like, all right, I had eggs for breakfast. I had a turkey sandwich for lunch. I had a burrito for dinner, or whatever it might be. Because then you can start to kind of lay out, okay, like, are they eating out? Where are they eating? Why are they eating? You start to see the little snacks. You can start to ask questions like, oh, it looks like you had, 3 snacks today. Like, what was that about? What were you feeling during that time? Whatever. Might be boredom. They might be eating out of boredom. They might be eating because they're with people. Like, you don't really know, right? But the other
Yeah.
thing is just like, for example, you might see someone who's like, oh, I have a pint of ice cream before bed every single night, right? And it's as simple as like, all right, well, obviously we don't want to be eating a pint of ice cream before bed every single night. But can we like change that to like half a pint for right now? Can we like dwindle that down just a bit? You can start to kind of make these little changes by just building awareness in what you're eating and actually seeing like it on paper. Be
Yeah.
like, hey, let's cut this down a little bit, right? Let's cut this down and maybe let's replace this with something else. And it's just as simple as that. And you don't even have to worry about the stress of macros or huge diet plans, like you said in the beginning, because I just think those are so detrimental to people early on in the process. And especially when you're just learning about somebody or just initial having that initial relationship with somebody, I just think it's so detrimental to like long-term success.
Yeah, and also, like, if we think about um, restriction being the thing, let's say we're trying to lose some body fat, or if calorie restriction, or if that is kind of what we're doing here. I usually try to find the type of restriction you feel the least restricted by. So
Mhm.
for some people, macros create some liberty in terms of food choices. Yet you need to have them have quality food most of the time, but that can create some freedom for people, as well as I've had clients that I had one guy, he just ate 3 times a day, so 3 meals a day, and he had some protein with all of them, and that he felt super uh, free in the sense that he didn't need to track macros. So I think there's a lot of ways to approach it, and just try to find for the individual, where are we applying to the basic lifestyle guidelines, and how do we set it up so you get the most amount of freedom, uh, the nutritional freedom, and freedom in your lifestyle, but still compliant with wherever you want to go and your goals and priorities. So it's not always what I do macros.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just trying to find what's the format and what's the design that's going to fit you, and where you feel the most free if we need to have some restriction.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think like for the macros, I usually kind of explain to people, and this is just some way that helps me think about it too. Like, macros are numbers, right? So it's like theoretically, if you follow these numbers to the T, you'll be able to like pick the date in which you're gonna weigh a certain amount, right?
yeah,
And with the other way, it's a little more up and down. There's not as much specific measurability to it, like because you're not measuring things, but it can be a little bit less stressful on the body, and you're learning a lot of very important tasks that come along with awareness. But both of them work, and I think in what we're talking about right now, you like you said, you either progress into it or you just kind of understand the person in front of you. And sometimes, I've had instances where I know the people, I know they have experience and they just kind of want to get back on track. So like macros, you just throw them right in to it because they have the experience. They know they're getting ready for an event. Like I have a lot of people who obviously are fighting and they're I don't do like nutritional stuff with them for the weight cuts, but I'm always talking to them about that sort of thing and understanding where they're at macro wise, where they're at, and
yeah.
they're jumping in, jumping out of that stuff. But yeah, so I think just understanding that kind of concept there also helps as a coach, helping these types of clients.
And also, with if you're going to work with calories and macros, like in this case, I think it's worth thinking about from what way are you entering and how do you approach it. If Because I see a lot of coaches go like calorie restriction. When
Mhm.
you manage to do that, and I've done that before as well, where you go calorie restriction, and then when they manage to keep that calorie restriction, you start setting a protein target, and when you manage to hit that. So, but I like to build from kind of the other way around, where with this one, the progression was that I wanted to guide him, and it worked well for him to be guided by protein and fiber. So he had protein and fiber targets as kind of the next step, where he struggled a bit with hitting 140 grams of protein the first week. So we kept going after the weekly consultation. We did some tweaks, and then he ended up doing really well on that one. But one could have gone, and I see sometimes people go straight to calories and calorie restriction and don't caring about food quality or what makes up those calories. So I usually like to have the approach to add stuff, or add something in. So add a target of protein. I want you to eat fiber rather than taken away, because it makes a difference. I believe in the feeling about, and not creating that, as you said, just having numbers on your food. It can be quite tough.
Yeah, and I think like that's like that right there is such a good point. I was gonna kind of mention that in some capacity, but like, how many people when they get started with a coach or they get into things and it's this like immediate, almost like aggressive, like take this, take this, take this is gone, this is gone, this is gone. And then you want, and like people kind of dive in and they struggle with a lot of stuff. And it's not to say, to be soft and let them make mistakes, but looking at someone's nutrition, looking at how they're eating and adding better options in at an early point, and then kind of replacing them and then kind of dwindling away those bad options is like such a important way to think about this stuff, especially like you said, like if you're talking about implementing protein, right? Like having that laid out where we're going to add pieces into your diet right now. They're going to increase your protein intake so you can get to this point. So we can really work on this because this is a very important, um, you know, nutrient for us to consume that's going to have a ton of benefits. So if we work on this really important piece right here and we get into that habit, then we can start to kind of fix everything else on the back end of it. But
Yeah.
it's finding ways to add better options in as opposed to right away just taking everything away, because you see this in other areas of life where people smoking or alcohol use or things like that. Like when you just go cold turkey, how many times does it actually work when you actually want
Yeah.
to stop that sort of thing, right? And I think it's the same thing with eating. When you have a certain way you've eaten your entire life, and someone comes in, they're like, "Nope, we're switching this whole thing up, and it's got to be done today." You make mistakes, you miss out, you feel really horrible about the situation because you might not have the necessary skills for that, and you need to kind of put yourself in a position where you can slowly kind of get yourself into those skills to make that progress.
Yeah, and like we've discussed before about um like with training, when someone comes to me, it's not always the case that they are training at the moment. And like we discussed, that I sometimes investigate, like what kind of training do you like, and that is not always the case where they actually do some form of fitness or moving around. It
Yeah.
might be they have no idea. Whereas with food, people eat, and
Mhm.
usually how they eat is an expression of their preference. So I want to find, how can I change this the least amount and still get to the goals we want to get to. So, and that's the difference between training and nutrition. I believe that we need to eat, and people eat,
Yeah.
and whereas training, not everyone, and moving around, not everyone is doing it, and might be that they don't have a preference. They can just be like, I know I need to do it, just let me know what to do. But with eating and nutrition, it's usually expression of preference.
Mhm.
So finding the least amount, the minimum effective dose, in terms of, if we get there by eating pint of ice cream rather than a full pint, well, that might be quite good case.
Mhm.
And then when they see the benefits of that, it might intrigue them to go further and take that journey. But in the beginning, be a bit careful about just changing it up too much, because it's yeah, I believe in precision and
Yeah.
finding what's going to move the needle the most, and not just being all over the place doing a lot of changes. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, some people do need that like kick in the butt, and they
yeah,
need to kind of be like, I don't want to say drill sergeanted. I don't know if that's the right way to put that, but like they don't need, like, some people need a drill sergeant just be like stop, you know. But I
yeah,
think for the most part, you know, humans will learn in the right environment, and most of them don't do well when you just kind of get put into the fire or just thrown into the fire. You know, there's very few people who do well under that circumstance, and I think the ones who do, it works, right? But I think a lot of coaches come into these types of situations in the with the idea of, and we've talked about this in so many different instances, but with the idea of like, I'm the coach, you're going to listen to me, and what I say goes, and not take into account who's in front of you, and not take into account their experience or what they actually suck at. Because again, the macros might work perfect, you know, like they might be really good at tracking macros, but they just don't know how to cook. Then it's
yeah,
like, okay, well, like that's a whole different situation where it's like, you either have to learn how to cook, or we have to invest in the proper foods that are going to make this still easy, right? They might be a
yeah,
numbers person who just, they live in a place right now that the stove's broken and they can't cook, or they literally don't know how to cook certain things. And that's like such a fundamental thing that doesn't really account for macros. It's just like, hey, I don't know how to cook, right?
yeah.
And you have to learn that, you have to understand that. And as a coach, you really have to, again, you have to take that into consideration before you start drill sergeanting the situation.
Yeah, and I just want, before we go into the dashboard, I just wanted to show, like, if I wanted to progress this, it might be that I wanted to add a calorie target, and it's super easily done. I can have Coach RX calculate the macros, or I can set it individually. So let's say I want to go with 2,400 calories a day. I can do that. So I can, if we look at basic lifestyle guidelines, fueling, timing, in the lifestyle calendar, I can build a progression like I do in the training calendar, and add in maybe another RX, or alter the RX, or add some layers to it to make sure that my clients are moving in the right direction. So I think I've said it in a previous episode: if you're not using the lifestyle calendar in the Coach RX, you're missing out, because it's almost more happening in, and like we discussed before, almost more happening in the lifestyle calendar compared to the training calendar. And a lot of times I see coaches doing a lot of nutritional lifestyle coaching, but outside of the Coach RX, and then you don't have, like with the training, you don't have the record, or the option to look back on what worked, what didn't work. So I highly encourage people to that the users of Coach RX, and if you're not using lifestyle calendar, do it and start play around with it, because it's such a helpful tool, especially if we go to. So this is one of my clients. This creates. I have. So this is the dashboard where I can see. For example, from his Garmin, I have the movement, I have the sleep, I have the recovery, fitness, and he has a different app for tracking his nutrition. And during consultations, I always pull this up. Not always because I walk my clients through it, but I want to just make sure I've looked at it, looked at the week and the month that's behind us, because I do monthly consultations. For the most part, I have some that I do weekly consultations with, but having this, to going back to enhancing individual design and decisions, and also enhancing coaching and the conversations we can have. Because if I have this in front of me, I have way more information than I did before. Then I just relied on their feeling, or how they describe that the week has been, and that's a really important piece of the puzzle. But still, this really takes the consultation, coach-client relationship, and all my decisions to the next level. Being able to have this in front of me when I do my consultations. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
question.
yeah.
As a general practice, do you ask clients to connect for your visibility and prescription refinement, or their own tracking? So basically, like, do you ask them to connect for your own purpose or for their own purpose?
I usually ask them to connect so I can make better decisions. Not that I expect them to follow any trends. And it's almost like with the training where I do the prescription and keep track and take responsibility for alterations and the outcomes. And it's same with the lifestyle tracking. I always take responsibility of keeping an eye on it, and I don't expect my clients to act on it on their own, because I want, and they do sometimes because they can also see it, but it's mostly um, for my end to be able to be a better coach, I'd say.
Yeah, I think sometimes with this stuff, you're like, so many people, again, they focus on the program design, and that's really important for, uh, I'd say, like, performance, you know?
Yeah,
But how many times, and we were kind of just having this conversation yesterday, just me and Daniel, but, when you have a someone who is not getting what they want out of something, or you're not seeing what you want to see out of a client, most of the time, and it's not to say that we don't make mistakes as coaches, but obviously, most of the time there's going to be situations outside of it that are affecting it, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's clients I've worked with who want to go through weight loss, and then you ask them about all the things that are going outside. The program is the program, right? Like, whatever movements they're doing, like, the concept is just to move. But when you go and check
yeah,
their sleep, they're not sleeping. They're not moving outside of the workout. Their nutrition is terrible. And having this sort of thing to then look back onto the program is to say, okay, well, we've been consistent with this program for 3 months now, right? Your numbers are going up, and whatever those metrics are that you're tracking, it might be weight loss, it might be performance, it might be competitive based, it might be aesthetic based, whatever it might be. We can actually look at and have all this information in front of us and say, well, for the last month, you didn't sleep more than 5 hours, and you
yeah,
didn't lose the same amount of weight that you were hoping to lose, even though you were consistent with the program. And you weren't moving outside of it. And all the program was the same. We were consistent, we're building, progressing, all that good stuff. But something's not happening in the right way here. It might literally just be they're not moving enough. They don't have enough steps. They're not sleeping enough. They don't have enough actual time in bed. And you can actually start to make real changes on the lifestyle that you don't even need to really change the program for. Right. And I
no,
think that's a huge undervalued aspect of this for a coach.
yeah, and also like you'll see compliance drop in training. You can revisit priorities, and same
Mhm.
here when you see maybe sleep or like your the client's compliance to basic lifestyle guidelines, or you can see something is going on. For one, it can create back to clarity and presence. I also use it to enhance my presence as a coach because I can see the numbers. Like, hey man, is anything going on in your life? Because I see you're not sleeping really well, and you get a chance to capture that conversation, as well as you can go back to priorities. Is there something we need to change here? Because right now we're not that compliant with what was successful before. So it's yeah, it's as long as you back to the list of how I try to use it, as long as it's just not noise or creating a distance, you know what habit is it connected to, use it with intent. It's such a powerful tool, and I
Agree.
highly believe that this is the next generation of coaching because it's it's not replacing the coach client relationship, it's enhancing it, and if you use it the right way, it's definitely the future of fitness coaching, I believe.
I just think it's so important. You know, like, again,
Yeah.
like, because I think we talked about it. The programs are the programs, and I just think sometimes it's not really movement that needs to change. It's literally everything else outside of that that needs to change. So
Yeah.
it's important. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's it from me with the lifestyle.
Agreed.
Awesome, guys. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed hearing you talk through some of those progressions. It's always interesting to see how each of you approach using the features. Yeah, I love it. Do you have any feedback from clients who are also, because obviously in the client mobile app, they have Insights dashboard as well, and they can see some of these things. Do you have clients who haven't given any feedback on that element of the training and the coaching?
I have several clients that likes to have everything in the same place, and it's really great in that sense to not have to jump around different apps or different places to collect the data. So I have and also that it's from the user end, quite simple to understand. So yeah, good feedback.
Amazing. Well, cool. I know we're right at time, so I appreciate you guys digging in. And thanks for joining us. If y'all have any questions as you're watching the replay of this, please drop them in the comments. We will monitor and address any of those questions. Also, in the description of all of the episode videos, you'll find links to both of the coaches' Instagram. So if you want to connect with each of them directly to explore some of these topics further or ask any questions, they are completely open to doing so. So please
I've had
connect
some good
with them.
conversations with the coaches so far. I've had some coaches reach out, so it's been good.
Awesome. I know some of the students inside this cohort of the OPEX Method Mentorship have mentioned that they're following along the show and really appreciating it because they're taking a lot of the principles in right now and also starting to apply in CoachRX, but it's really helpful for them to see you guys actually applying in your day-to-day.
Yeah.
If you're doing the OPEX method, I from what I know, a lot of coaches go through it really all layers on the program design pieces, but I highly recommend you to be like dig into the lifestyle stuff as well, because it makes a difference if you want to be a coach, full-time coach.
Love it. Okay, cool. We will be back next week with a new episode. Appreciate you guys listening, and we will see you soon.
Cool.